Welcome back to the Nullify Take, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Blood versus Water Week 3. And I've got my main man, Jake, back here with me on the podcast. We're reunited. Fingers crossed, Jake. We will have no technical difficulties this week like we did last week. How have you been?
I've been great. I enjoyed these last three episodes. How about you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it that much that I added more to my weekly list of things to do. Like I had a little bit of a play around with the format on the channel, and I did some really short 15, 16-minute videos for each episode just to get some of my raw thoughts out there as soon as the episode aired. I think about an hour, 2 hours after that, it was live, and I gave a little bit of insights in regards to what I was thinking about the episodes. But obviously, it was a big week because we had some giants in the game fall this week. And, I think our top five that we've had in the past, there might be a bit of a shakeup because two of those people that have featured in the top five in week one and week two, they're no longer in the game with us.
Yep, there's definitely going to be some shakeups. That's what's going to happen with Australian Survivor in these early weeks. We usually see some, if they, characters like Sophie, who are, very outspoken and, interesting, they're going to be developed early, but then they're going to have a downfall. So you're going to be looking at them in that first week, like we did, and then it all just comes crashing down at the very next week. So
Yeah,
in these early weeks in Australian Survivor, there's going to be a lot of shakeups
yeah,
in
you
our
go
top
from hero
fives.
to zero like really quickly in the Australian
Yep.
edit. I mean, week one, I thought Khan, this guy's going to be a
Mhm.
mastermind. He's going to run the season. And then since then, Khan's ship has had so many holes poked in it, and he's just frantically trying to get water out of the ship as it's sinking at the moment, or maybe even not even knowing how many holes is in that ship at the moment from
Yeah,
what we're seeing in the edit.
yeah.
But a lot of players, there's been a bit of a shakeup. I also want to just let people know as they're tuning in here to the live stream, and specifically this recap, let them know that we may have finally gotten our first Australian Survivor guest that will be on the podcast next week as well to recap week 4 with us. Wei Chim, who played last year, in last year's season of Australian Survivor, she will be on the podcast unless something has changed. I think we're still good for that, and we may have another cast member of hers also the week after that. So there will be a slight change to when we do this podcast next week to accommodate waste times and when she can make it work. We should be live on Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So I believe that might be if you're in the US around 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US. So you might not be able to watch that, but obviously the recording will always be available next time if you want to listen to that later on. Now, the big thing here in episode 7 is that we get a tribe swap happening, Jake. And, Sam goes into that challenge very confident, saying to JLP, I want to see what's underneath the blanket. And he gives her a bit of a surprise. I don't think she was anticipating it. And quite a few interesting things happens here with the tribe mix-up, and Mark being the only person to get a no buff, and he gets to decide where he wants to go. What did you think of the tribe swap happening here? So, I guess it's a bit early in the season, maybe 1 or 2 episodes earlier than what we expected. And also Mark's decision not to go to Sam's tribe here.
I think you and I mentioned this already. I think we agreed that this was a good time for the swap. Some alliances had started to solidify on those original tribes, and I think it was pretty fun here to see everything mix up. And as for the twist with Mark, I was I was like almost 100% certain that he was going to be sent to some like exile island or something, and then have a chance to get an advantage, or um, you know, some Survivor Classic thing like that. But the fact that he just got to choose right then and there was interesting. But I had a feeling he wasn't going to go with Sam, just because you can tell he's taken this really seriously. Like this time around, he is not wasting his chance. And I think Sam is trying her best to understand, but that's just got to be so hard that you're like right there with your loved one Like you see them on the other mat every challenge, and you have a chance to be with them, and then they just decide to go to the other one. It must have been really hard for Sam, but I I think it was smart for Mark because the whole reason that he and Sam failed in the original season was that they were together. So I
Yeah.
mean, obviously everyone else has their loved ones this time too, but I think he has a bit of I think Sam, as Sam said, bit of trauma from that.
Yeah.
Maybe just didn't want to deal with it until merge. And he had some of his alliance members already on the red tribe, so it was a perfectly fine decision in my opinion.
I think he articulated his strategy pretty well afterwards in the confessionals in regards to why he made that move. And like Dreaming KW says here, and welcome to the live stream, with all three boots this week being from pairs who ended up in the same tribe, I think that Mark definitely made the right choice. And that is a great observation there in regards to pairs being split up here this week. I think that, Mark sort of mentioned here, at this stage, we don't need to be in the same tribe. That's kind of what got us voted out the first time we played the game together, like you mentioned as well, Jake. And also, I think that Mark had the idea of let's divide and conquer. You build your alliance on your tribe. I'll build my alliance on my tribe. And by the time we get to the merge, if we can both get there, we've got to trust in each other's ability to make it to the merge. We will be able to bring our alliances together and then run the show at the end of the day. And I think that is a very smart observation and smart strategy there. I was a little bit fearful, Jake, for Sam's game because she ended up in a tribe where she wasn't necessarily, I know she had Jesse with her, the kid, who obviously is her alliance member, and it looked like they've got a tight bond. But outside of having Jesse in that tribe, it did look like she was at the most vulnerable position that she's ever been in because Sophie was there. Sophie had a vendetta against her. And, I thought that if Sam was to be a real contender this season and someone that we could say she could win this season, she needed to get rid of her nemesis in the game. And it was a bit shaky times there for her in this first episode.
Yep, I was. My heart dropped for her when I saw Sophie was on pulled the same buff as her. But I think that Sophie was just too big of a target coming into it. So I think I knew she was going to be okay, but that was scary for her definitely. And I can't. I am very bad with Australian Survivor on remembering who was on what original tribe, and then when the tribe swap comes. But
So many people.
yes, I think Sophie, was it just Sophie and Jesse that were on Sam's
What,
or
Sam's
Croc?
original tribe? And
Croc?
also Michelle. You had Michelle,
So,
Croc,
yeah,
Ben. So
Ben,
there's a few
yes.
people. There was
But
a few
Ben,
people in there.
yeah, Ben was kind of with Sophie. I don't even remember if he voted for Sophie
I don't.
or not.
I felt like Ben was the only one that really stayed true to Sophie throughout the whole game. I mean,
Yeah,
even her sister turned against her
yeah,
pretty quickly in this episode and abandoned the sinking ship. And listen, I'm not taking any shade at KJ. I know she
mm,
listens. She's one of the few people that actually, I think, listens to some of our podcasts or recaps
really,
on this channel. Yes. So I'm not taking shade at KJ for doing that because I do think that with what KJ, she was in a very difficult position out in the game where her personality and the way that she plays the game, I think she prefers to play a passive, low key, behind the scenes type of game. She does not have the gear or the natural personality to take more of an aggressive approach in her strategy. And you've got to, when you're playing the game like Survivor, you've got to lean into your strengths and your weaknesses. Her strength was the opposite to her sister's. In a different season, I could see Sophie running the game. Like, I mean, I think that she just got voted out very early on. She was sort of identified as a target because she had the alpha boys in her side and they needed to take her out. And from there, Sophie didn't know how to lay low or go below the radar and try and come back. She's tried everything to get back into a position of power. And I think she made a lot of people paranoid and probably was wearing on them out there because she was trying to strategize that much, trying to do a Matt and David Gannat plan of working
yeah,
together with Sophie. No one would, sorry, with Sam, and no one would ever expect it. I just think her mind was racing at 120 miles an hour when everybody else was just trying to get through the day, basically.
right, yeah. I just want to say I have no no qualms with what KJ did. Especially, she showed so much like empathy, or I guess emotion, when she had to do what she had to do. Whereas Nina, pretty ruthless. What she did, she was just like, yeah, got to do what I got to do. But KJ really struggled with her decision, especially as the older sister. You know, she's always grew up protecting and always looking out for her little sister, and then she had to do the complete opposite. And
Yeah.
I think it was absolutely the right move for her to do that. There was just no, as you said, it was a sinking ship. There's, you want to jump off that as soon as you can.
Yeah, and you'd hope your family members would understand it's a game, and if
Right,
I win if I win $500,000, I'll look out for you. I'll buy you a good Christmas present or
right.
something like that. But we'll talk about if this was a good move for KJ. I think in the second episode for this week, we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. But I know you're not big on the challenges in general, but I did want to bring up, I really enjoyed the tug of war boats challenge that they had, where they had the two
Yes.
rowboats
Yeah.
up against each other with a bit of rope, and they had to like row against each other to see who would win.
Mhm.
And I thought it was really original. Marcus Evans, who's way more of a survivor buff than myself, who's in the live chat as well, will probably know if this has been done before. I didn't off the bat remember if I've seen a challenge similar to this one before. I don't know if you've seen this, Jake, but I thought it was quite original, and I really like the different strategies to how to win this, and seeing it play out on the screen. I thought it was visually quite appealing.
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing. As you said, I'm not a very big challenge guy. Well, even last week, I didn't even have enough time to watch the challenges. This week I did, so I was able to see that one. I don't remember if it was for reward or immunity, but
Reward, yeah.
it was for reward, right? I in the middle of it, I was like, man, this is actually really cool. Like you said, it's very unique. I do not think it's been done before. I would be shocked if it has. Um, yeah, I agree. Always, yeah. The challenges on the US seasons are getting
Copy and paste a lot of the
pretty,
times.
exactly, you know, tweak a few little things here or there, but it's the same concept pretty much. And
Now,
yeah,
yeah, I was going to say, let's talk a little bit about, because I did enjoy the challenge. I thought it was really good, and obviously they're going to continue to bring some really creative challenges throughout this week. And let's talk a little bit about Croc and Chrissy finally being reunited. Chrissy there's no secret of mine that she's one of my two favorites. Like, Khan and Chrissy can do nothing wrong in my eyes. I will be blindly supporting them throughout this whole season and be very biased in my podcasting because of that. But Chrissy, she gets reunited with her brother-in-law Croc here, and we'll definitely talk about Croc because I think he's having a bit of a hard time when it comes to the challenges this season. But they find an immunity idol together. Chrissy sees it at the reward. She gets the clue, and Croc then somehow takes possession of this idol, not Chrissy, which I'm hoping it does not spell bad luck for Chrissy and that she becomes collateral damage if they start taking aim at that pair, because no one's aware that Croc's got this idol, so they could split the vote between those two at some point, and Croc could idol out his sister-in-law, and it would be quite ironic since she's the one who actually found the clue in the first place, but
yep.
he's the one that took possession of it.
Yeah, I don't know if they showed it. I can't remember. Did they? I mean, obviously Croc was the one that actually grabbed it out of, like, when they had to like pull a rope to actually retrieve it. Did Chrissy sign off on that? Did she let him take it? Or did she, maybe she's like, I don't know what the heck to do with this thing, you take it. But also want to add, I thought it was hilarious when Chrissy was like, should we tell anyone? And Croc was like, no.
Sandra.
Sandra told me you never tell anyone. I'm like, this is hilarious. Like, they're like, she's like a god to them, and they're just like, please tell me what to do, and they just follow everything that she says. I thought Croc was, I think he's a bit of a fan, right? Isn't he? But Chrissy's
He is.
not.
Yeah. Apparently
Yeah,
he is. So he got Chrissy into it because he's a fan. So he
right.
explained a little bit of the game to her.
Yeah.
And Carlos here saying that it was hilarious, her reaction to finding the idol and thinking that she's automatically going to win the game now that they've got the idol.
Chrissy, I'm with you. I'm a Chrissy stan for sure. She's
We
She
need more
might.
Chrissies on the game. And the other thing that
Right.
for me was really funny, I mean, while we're on the subject of Chrissy, I know I'm trying to keep it like a little bit more organized than what we've been in some of the previous
Yeah.
podcasts and talk about the first episode and then the second, but I don't want to forget about this. Chrissy
Right.
being painted as the potential Kara of this season and
Hmm.
forgetting where to vote was just hilarious to me,
Yes.
not knowing what the votes were going to be
Yes.
and too many plans going on. And I think production really stretched to make the Kara of this season, you know?
She had me confused. I was like, wait a second, did the plan actually change? I was so confused. And then Croc had his confessional like, Chrissy is getting confused over which plan is real. And I'm like, wow, like I didn't, that didn't even cross my mind. I was like, wait, so the plan did change to Khan,
Hmm.
but maybe I'm just dumb too. Maybe I'm also not following very well, but she had me confused, but then it still stayed on.
When the
Was it
narrator
Sophie?
is
Yeah.
when the narrator is confused, it definitely makes the audience confused at the same time as
Right.
well. But it
Yeah.
added definitely to the fun of the episode. Marcus in the live here does say no, the majority of Australian challenges are very original, apart from some classics, which is true. We still see some of them, but
Mhm.
making it their own. Like an example in episode 9 when they did the immunity challenge in a tribe version instead of the individual, and that's the challenge, Jake, where they had the trip obstacle that they had to walk through and then build
Mhm.
like a tower with different
Right.
pieces. And the one that Jordan ended up costing his tribe the immunity. And I spoke about that in my weekly top 5 takeaways. And I said, how much pressure would there be on you? Like, I mean, when you're doing this as an individual, you can only screw up your own
Mhm.
chance of winning an immunity. But as a team sort of immunity challenge, I thought it brought a different element of pressure to it because you don't want to be the guy that stuffs it up for your team.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really think about that. You can only, yeah, you're right. You can only be mad at yourself. It's only hurting yourself when it's an individual challenge like that. But when you're taking turns, it's for the whole tribe. That challenge reminded me of in Gabon, Final 7, somewhere around there. They had a similar thing, except instead of stacking plates or objects, it was like a domino. They had to like
I
go like it
remember.
was it was like, yeah, you remember, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like an
Yeah.
obstacle course where like if they accidentally like hit something, it would knock
The
over
dominoes
the
over, yeah, and
dominoes.
then
Yeah,
it had to like do it all the way to the end. I think that my one's been, I think they've replicated that challenge a few times in other seasons as
I
well. But I'm
think
just not
they.
enough of a,
Yeah,
I'm like I haven't seen, especially some of those earlier seasons enough recently to remember the exact sort of what challenge it would have been. But
yeah.
yeah, definitely. Again, obviously, we're always going to be praising Australian Survivor for the challenges and
Mhm,
how they knock it out of the park on that. And, on the specific one, I think another big talking point, obviously, is that for this episode, you get Nina and Sandra that are finally going to be reunited in a tribe together, with both of them being kind of reluctant as to if it is a good thing. Because I think we spoke about this in the podcast last week. Sandra, to me, I think if she stayed in her original tribe, probably she would have been good for another vote or two. I really believe that, where
yeah,
she was very comfortably in that mid pocket of 4 players, and we had the two opposing factions there that she was playing off against each other. I think she had a way forward in that tribe, but that gets taken away from her when she joins Nina's tribe, and she has to rely on Nina's relationships, I should say, with the tribe there. And it's ultimately going to be a thing that will make her a massive target because Geordie looks at her as very appetizing and a great resume builder at this stage in the game.
yep. Not only that, but day 16 got her once again. That is crazy to me. I don't even,
Cursed.
you know,
She's
I feel
cursed.
like, yeah, I like to say I'm pretty good at math, but I don't even know how to calculate the probability of her getting voted out 3 different times. And those are the only times she's ever been voted out. She's been voted out 3 times, all on day 16. That's got
Do
to
you
be
think
some
she makes it a
crazy
bit of
odds.
a self-fulfilling prophecy by telling people about this, and Geordie is just like, "Oh, I think we need to continue to let this thing go on," and because he's
Yes.
a massive fan, like he'll know about that as well, and he's probably just thinking, "Oh, well, let's give the Queen what she needs. We'll continue to
Hmm.
let her live out this self-fulfilling prophecy of being the person that gets voted out on day 16 every single time since she's won the show." A great example of that actually is in the challenge, which I just had a challenge live stream a little bit earlier, talking about some of the great news that's come to light this week about the challenge going global. So there's now going to be the challenge CBS, there's going to be the challenge Australia, the challenge UK, the challenge Argentina, and then ultimately there's going to be a crossover where all the challenge franchises are going to compete in a War of the Worlds type of situation with all the champions going up against each other. So we may even get some Survivor legends now playing the challenge. One of the things that happens in the challenge, the biggest winner and the person that is like legendary status, similar to Sandra, for the longest period after he won his, I think, sixth championship on the show, he couldn't get past it, and he had a bogey where he couldn't get past a certain point in the game as well. He couldn't make a finale, and he had that same narrative where he's like, "I'm cursed since I won my last one because he took money away from his partner at the end, so he did a bit dirty." And he thought that was like why he couldn't get past it. But then he did ultimately get past it. So you've got to think that if Sandra continues to come back, like at
Hmm.
some point, she's going to break this curse. Like I feel like we now need to see Sandra break this curse.
I mean, the way to break the curse is just get voted out before day 16, because so far she's only been voted out on day 16, which is, like I said, that's remarkable. But I agree. I mean, I know we said it was a good time for the swap, but if you're a Sandra stan, then I understand if you disagree with that, because she would have made it past day 16 finally. Um,
Mm.
Not sure if she would have really gone the distance though. Uh, Definitely, I don't think she was going to go the full distance, but I'm saying, like, maybe the merge. I don't even think she would have made it there, to be honest.
What's your thoughts on this move, and how do you think this actually builds Geordie's resume? Like he likes to say, I did this to build my resume. I can now claim at the end that I took Sandra out. She was the biggest threat to win this game. Like, I mean, I looked at that and I was thinking to myself on the update, biggest threat? No ways. Like, I mean, she came into this thing with the biggest target. You did the obvious thing by voting out the
Yeah.
obvious person. Like that to me isn't like, if I'm in the jury sitting there and you're telling me how great you were because you took Sandra out, like he's gonna have to do a lot more than that to impress me, because I would just be like, well done, you did what you were supposed to do. You got rid of the 2 times champion.
Mhm. I completely agree. Also, I don't. Does anyone else on his tribe really like think like, oh yeah, Jordy, he was the one that masterminded this vote? I don't even know if they believed.
Who did
I
he have
don't
to
know.
convince? Who did he have to convince?
No one. He didn't even have to convince Nina. She made that decision on her own. And
Yeah.
yeah, I
And that was an
agree with
interesting one.
you.
That was an interesting one though with Nina, because the edit made us believe that she didn't know where the votes was going to go. She said, "Don't tell me in the tribe if you're going to vote for my mother. I don't want to know about it. Just do it. Make it clean and
Mhm,
quick." But in the tribal council, she changed her vote to vote out her mother to show
mhm,
loyalty. Well, if you're not included in the vote and if they haven't told you about it, then why even vote for your mother? It doesn't make sense to do so, because they didn't tell
mhm.
you about it if we believe the edit. I think somebody gave her the word that was happening, and due to that she voted that way, but we didn't see that conversation taking place. That's what I think happened.
I think so too. I don't know, like, if there's even a 1% chance that they're not voting for her, but you do, that could
Mm.
just mess up a whole lot of things. Like, so I agree. I don't think she would have. And yeah, no one is gonna like even bat an eye if she doesn't vote for Sandra. Like, no one's gonna be like, she's dead to us. She didn't vote with us. No, she even said, just don't tell me. Like, I'm still with you guys. Just, that's gonna be a hard thing for me to do. I don't think there's even a 1% chance that she had no idea what was happening. Someone had to have told her. There's just no way. Doesn't make sense.
Now, where do you think this leaves Nina in this game? She's now lost the partner that she had in this game, her mother, who was a massive threat. Do you think this plays into her favor here and she becomes a
Mhm.
bit of a free agent? Or do you think that we're going to continue to see this trend that we've been seeing this season, that if you don't have a partner, I mean, unless your name is Juicy Dave, people are going to target you and you're going to be out of the game. Juicy seems to be just, sliding by every single week and he's still in the game somehow. But everybody else that hasn't had partners in the game, they've become massive targets.
I think, as was it, let's see, Dreaming, KW, two of the three boots this week were ones that did have pairs. Yeah, I think they originally said that all three, but it was actually only
Yeah.
two. Um, so maybe we're seeing a bit of a shift here in terms of that. Also, I think Nina is probably a bit of an exception to this rule because of her partner being Sandra, and she's kind of like her own thing. I think it definitely plays into how she personally wants to play the game. She's been saying since the beginning, I want to play my own game. I don't want to be known as Sandra's daughter. I want to be known as Nina,
Mm.
survivor player. So definitely plays into her mindset and way of playing the game. And she seems to be in a fine position for now. Later, we're going to see a whole bunch of shifts in the game that we can't even fathom at this point. So it's a bit early to really say what's going to happen at that point. For now, I
Mm.
think she's fine.
I do want to give her massive credit towards the end of the week, and we'll get into that for, there's always this thing where people talk about big moves, building a resume. You need to look impressive by the time you get to the end. But like you kind of just mentioned, it's a marathon when it comes to Australian
Yeah.
Survivor. Like you're making these big moves like Geordie right now, you're the Queen Slayer and all these kind of things. People notice you early on and you become too big of a threat, and then they take you out before you even get to the finale. And Nina did have the ability, because I think what's just as impressive as pulling off a big move is being able to withhold yourself from making a big move as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's just as impressive if it's not in your favor to
Yep.
do so. But in the early stages here for episode 8, we do see that Geordie kind of talks about the fact that he now needs to apologize to Nina, who he's been close with. He does a bit of his apology tour by joking around with her, getting her to kiss a fish or something on the show, which was a funny moment. And a new power player suddenly comes up in the shape of Jay more and more, I think, becoming a power player towards the end of the week. So it was an interesting dynamic shift that we saw from Geordie being the main Alpha Guy Alliance leader, then to Jay being, in his mind, the main Alpha Guy Alliance leader. And we'll talk about that when we go into episode 9. But
Do you
more so
mean
interesting.
Josh?
Oh, sorry, Josh. Yeah, sorry, I got it
Yeah.
confused. Josh being the male
Yeah.
alpha leader. So one of the things that I found interesting was that when the tribes get together, there's a big reaction to Sandra obviously being voted out when they go to the challenge. And Nina's quite open about the fact that she needed to make this move against her
Mhm.
mother, and that she needed to look out for herself. I thought she came a bit on strong in regards to being
Mhm.
cutthroat in the game.
Yep.
How do you think other people will perceive her? Because I made a point of it on my 5 takeaways that I think that in the Aussie culture, it's a little bit more laid back. It's not as cutthroat. I feel like she's bringing that American mindset, capitalism. You got to step on other people to get to the top type of mentality. Do you think that's going to hurt her or make her a bigger target in the game? Or is she just that big of a target? It doesn't really matter at this stage just because she is royalty.
I'm not sure if it really affects her target that much, but I think in the moment, definitely people were like, damn, like she really means business, doesn't she? Like I audibly said, damn, like when she said that to Jonathan, I was like just showed no mercy whatsoever. She was like, I think she even said, like, I don't really feel bad about it or whatever. Like,
Say it to
wow.
the camera. Don't say it in front of the others. This is kind of how I feel. I love
Yeah,
the
right,
content, but just say it to the
exactly.
camera.
At least yeah, at least, like, pretend to be, like, sad about it,
Heartbroken. Yeah.
or at least, like, don't even say, like, "Oh, yeah, I voted for her," like, at least say, like, "Man, it was so hard to, like, watch her go," I don't know. But I agree, she came on strong, although at the end of the day, I'm not sure people are really taking that. too seriously. Maybe they just in the moment were like, wow, okay, yeah, she voted out her mom. The next Sierra Easton.
Just want to go back to some of the live comments here. Marcus says, we'll say they do need to add some puzzles at the end, as it does help the weaker people in the tribe to contribute. Only criticism of Australian challenges. I agree with you, Marcus. I had a real rant about that most of last season when we had a Brains tribe and we didn't really focus on that aspect of the show. And Dreaming is saying that the pre-swap targets seem to be focused on getting out the unattached partners. Post-swap, the focus is now on partners for sure. That's why Dave has moved sort of out of the spotlight into more of a floating role at the moment. Going back here to this specific episode, on the reward and immunity challenge, they do have one of the Survivor Classics. I can't recall exactly which seasons we've seen it. Obviously, they bring it up that it has been an Australian Survivor as well in the first season that Mark participated with Sam. And they've got these discs that they need to hold up while stretching their arms out with their palms facing each other. And it was quite interesting to see Sam and Mark again take sort of a bit of a leadership role here and strategizing where people were going to be situated to get the best out of them. Again, it's a challenge that I do like because visually it's quite appealing, and I like anything that has to do with endurance and the strength and your will to succeed, to push you over that hump to win it. And Mark does end up winning this challenge again, like he did the first time with Henry. There's a few of them, obviously, that stayed in it right until the end. Juicy Dave, funny enough, being one of them. He's been quite surprising from a challenge perspective for an older guy. He seems to be doing extremely well in the challenges.
Juicy Dave. Where did that name come from?
I think it's got to do with his Instagram personality. He's Juicy Dave on Instagram. And I will admit, like, I'm not a big Instagram stalker. Like, I don't go and watch people's profiles all that often, but I think he's quite a colorful personality just in life. And I think we're probably missing out on a lot of good Juicy Dave content just because, like, it's a good thing for him. I reckon we're going to see him go very deep in this game. I think he's going to be in the merge somewhere. He's probably going to be someone that people are going to forget about. He's not going to be attached to anyone. As soon as Juicy Dave starts getting more content, I'll start getting worried about him.
That's the first thing I thought about Josh when he started getting all this like mastermind. I was like, well, he's probably going to be gone in the next couple episodes.
That's what I thought about Geordie as well, to be fair. Like, both of them, I'm like, and then Geordie kind of disappeared again, and I'm like, okay, he's disappearing. Maybe he's not before the merge. Maybe he's like an early merge boot. But both of those guys, like, you know, they don't scream winner edit to me. They're going to be the guys that they scream like, listen, we're going to become these big targets and we're going to be taken out because we're potentially not managing our threat level in the game that well.
Kind of like Benji. Completely invisible, gets and then rises from the ashes and is like repeating the same confessional like 10 times in every episode, and then becomes so big of a target that he's taken out. For the challenge, I actually am going to be honest, I don't remember that challenge being in the Mark's original season, but pretty interesting that they decided to do it again when they know that he did so well in it originally. So, I mean, I don't know if they did it on purpose, but we'll see.
Probably. I mean, it makes for a good storyline when you've got someone out there and they have to beat their previous record. Like, I'm sure there's a challenge in there somewhere that Andy participated in, just in case he made it deep enough into the season, which he hasn't. Like, they wouldn't have changed the challenge a day before or 2 days before just to make sure Mark gets the right challenge, but they would have planned it out in advance, and they would have thought, okay, what 1 or 2 challenges from their original seasons would we like to bring back so that we can reference it, you know, in the show? Because people love that type of stuff.
Yeah, maybe they'll bring back the same challenge that Mark's tribe lost when he got voted out.
Yeah. Again, Croc very early dropping out in this one and struggling in the next one as well. The guy's a physical beast, but he doesn't seem to be able to pull it together in these challenges, which is a shame to see. I mean, I've seen some people online saying it's because he's going up against Mark all the time, and Mark is just phenomenal, and he is a beast himself as well. But Croc is struggling on his own, and sort of, you know, he was one of the first guys out of the challenge for that team. And if you're Croc, you know, you're there, you're casted as the big alpha male athlete type of guy, your tribe is expecting you to perform at a certain level. And I just
Mhm.
feel like he's not performing at that level. He's not doing a job for them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a bit surprised that no one's even like brought that up at all about him. I mean,
Mm.
it hasn't really like been so drastically like obvious that like he was the reason why they lost, but it might become that way to the point where they're like, well, gosh, is he even really doing much for us? Like, I know that there are like other players that are, also not great at challenges, but I think it's gonna look worse for him with just the way he looks.
Hmm. Dreaming KW here says Chrissy and KJ did amazing, and I do agree. I mean, one of the things that I sort of mentioned in my 5 takeaways for the episode was that JLP was giving Chrissy a hard time as soon as it started, saying that she's ready to quit, and it's like a minute into the challenge, and then Chrissy ends up proving him wrong and staying in
Mhm,
it right until the end, fighting with KJ. Respect to her for fighting. KJ obviously stayed in this for Sophie because she knew that Sophie was in danger, and Chrissy stayed in there with her and did a really good job going up against three very physically fit guys. I think this is a challenge that could have gone either way at the end, and sadly at the end it wasn't. I don't think it was Chrissy so much; it was more KJ. I can't even remember who was slipping up, but they both did a bloody good job, is what I'm getting at. So
mhm.
impressive for them both to do this. But a lot of the drama is going to happen after this because obviously Sophie is going to try and paint a target on Khan because Khan's got an idol. She's wanting to work with Khan, obviously realizing Khan doesn't want to work with her. Now she's painting the target back on him in this specific, pre-tribal shuffle here. And KJ comes to the conclusion she realizes that she might have to make a very difficult move, and ultimately votes against her sister, gets her out of the game, which I didn't think that we were going to see in such quick succession. Two family members voting. I mean, it took us how many? I don't even remember in the US how often it happened. Like obviously Sierra is the most well known one where she voted out her mother, and now we've had it twice here in this season where it's happened as well, where we got the vote out. And for me, it was quite interesting to see this because put yourself in that position there, Jake. How would you feel about it if you were to play with your family members out there, and you had to vote down a sibling? Could you do it?
I don't even want to think about that, honestly. It's such a it's so hard for us to say because I mean,
Yeah, we're sitting
it's
on
a
the
chance.
couch,
We're
but
sitting on the
still.
couch, we're sitting on our butts, just like, I would have done this, I would have done this. We don't know what's happening. It's for $500,000. In the case of, I'm not sure about like the conversion rate, like how much that is worth in US dollars, but I mean, it's a
Probably about the
million
same.
dollars.
Probably about the
Probably
same
about the same.
because yeah, because the thing is, in the US you pay tax on like half of it. In Australia,
Hmm.
you don't pay tax on the winnings. So I think that there will be a slight difference, probably in currency, maybe like, I don't know, 50, 60 grand or something like that, but it would still be a good chunk of change.
Right. I mean, it's that much money, and you come to the realization that your loved one, the person that you care about so much, is actually weighing you down from achieving that goal, has got to be one of the hardest things to ever pop into your head. And I don't know if I could go through with it. Like, if it was my sister or my mom or my dad or anyone, I don't think I could do it.
I
And
couldn't.
yeah, you mentioned in the US, like, how long did it take? It took just the first season with Sierra. I don't think anyone did it in San Juan del Sur.
Yeah.
I don't think so. And it was even a bit kind of a different in Blood vs. Water with Sierra because, her mom had already played once before. She already got her chance. Now it's her chance. And this is after the merge, and her mom had already been voted out. Like, there are even more circumstances to make Sierra's move just that more like
Plausible. Yeah. Or
plausible. Exactly.
yeah,
And I'm not
palatable even.
saying
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that KJ's isn't plausible or palatable, but in fact, I think we'll get to this a little later, but I think it was the right move for her, but it
Mm.
had to be so hard.
I 100% think, and to we'll answer Dreaming's question pretty soon here. I 100% think that if I was out there playing this game, I've said it before, I could not vote for my sister and I could not vote for my brother. My mom and dad would never play this game because I just know they would never go do it. But if I was to play with one of those two, my brother would probably be the reason I would be in trouble, because he would be like a Sophie type of character out there,
Hmm.
just like really in your face, will want to get stuff done his way, play a very aggressive game, would not have like a second gear. My sister would be super social. She would be like KJ. There would be no worries with her being in danger. I would have a bigger target on my back than her. But if any, because I'm also the older brother, so I can understand from that perspective that I would always want to protect my siblings in the game. And if they were to come for them, I would probably respond very similar to how Khan is going to respond in the next episode now that Amy is off. I would want to go out for blood. Like everybody that targets my family, they would be number one on my hit list. I would be
Hmm.
taking names. So I don't think I could do it. But to answer the question here, Dreaming asked, would you rather vote for them or use an idol on yourself and then idol them out? Now, for me, I would not vote for them at all. Like if my alliance said, like, listen, this is happening, you can't stop it, I would accept it. I wouldn't burn my own game immediately. I would plot revenge behind their backs and I would get
Hmm.
them back. But I would accept it in the minute and in the moment, and then not vote for them. They have to find a way to vote them out without my vote. Idol wise, if I've got an idol in my pocket and I know the votes are being split on us and there's a chance I'm going home, I'm playing my idol. I don't look at that as a direct betrayal and putting their name on parchment.
Yeah, they're saying it's similar to what happened to Keith and Wes in San Juan del Sur. That is that's also got to be really hard because you're not even making the decision in the moment. You have to deal with the fact afterwards, like knowing you are the direct reason why they are gone when it would have been you instead. That's pretty hard.
You got to play it. You got to play the idol for yourself. Like in that sense, like
Yeah.
I'm not. The thing is, I'm not going to push you in front of the bus. But like if
Yeah.
if there's a way I can escape the vote and not write your name down, then I don't look at that as like a direct betrayal.
Hmm.
But then again, you've also got the question, and you kind of mentioned this. We're missing some context here. Like, what if Sophie went to KJ and said, I'm okay with you writing my name down. I know
Hmm.
I'm going home. Like, we don't know if that happened. And if my
Hmm.
sister or my brother came to me and said that, I would probably still do it. I would probably do it as well. If they're okay with it and they know they're going home and they're saying, listen, don't mess up your game, that's different. And in that sense, you probably go ahead and write the name down. But what a difficult decision here for KJ to make at this specific time in the game. And we see even in episode 9 in the beginning, she's really struggling with it. Both of them are out now, and Sam is going to be in a high alert because Sam is now aware that she does not have that same bond with KJ. And there's a very interesting beginning of the episode where you see Sam and Chrissy negotiate terms in regards to what the hit list should look like. And Chrissy is saying, I can give you we can't go for KJ yet. I can give you X, Y, and Z first. I'm trying to remember who she said she's happy to go for first on the vote. I believe it was Ben or someone like that. Let me have a quick look. I had it somewhere in my notes. Do you remember who she said?
I believe it was Michelle.
Yes, you're right. She said we
Yeah.
can go Michelle first. We can go Michelle
Then
first before
KJ.
and then KJ,
Yeah.
because Michelle probably again physically not the strongest in any case, and I think that's Chrissy's way of trying to look out for KJ here.
Hmm.
But Sam, I think, is going to continue. In my mind, I think Sam is going to continue to try and put that target on KJ because she's going to be afraid that KJ is going to come for her, even though it doesn't look like KJ is directly blaming Sam for that vote at this point.
Yeah, we haven't really seen that at all. Like KJ saying, like we saw it with like Dave. He was like, "Oh, I'm so pissed. They voted out my daughter. I'm gonna vote every last one of them out." We haven't seen that from KJ when her sister got voted out and came to her tribe. She was just like, "Oh my gosh, my sister is here now. Like this is
I have to
crazy.
deal with her.
I have to deal with her now." Man, so I'm not sure if she's really like plotting revenge that
I don't
much.
think so. I think it's the wrong
Yeah.
read by Sam there. And Sam's like, a bit
Yeah.
over paranoid about the fact that KJ is going to like mount this resistance against her. But I think
Mhm.
one of the other things that must be playing in the back of her head, Marcus kind of mentioned it earlier here, that the tribe swap basically ended up with the majority of water 1.0 on blood 2.0, and then the majority of blood on water 2.0. And I think Sam finds herself outside of the numbers still on that
Mhm.
tribe to a certain degree, where she's worried about that and that KJ can pull the numbers together to potentially take her out. So it's probably her line of thinking is probably rational if you think about the fact that Sam definitely was the biggest contributor to the fact that Sophie had to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's perfectly plausible for her to think that KJ is going to come after her, but I just don't think KJ is that type of player.
No.
And they might not know that though, because she is so quiet. Who knows what's going through her head?
Yeah.
But
And it's
definitely a wrong read.
yeah, it's interesting. One of the things we kind of missed for the previous episode was Dreaming saying that this could have happened if Sophie found the idol. And another thing I think that made KJ just decide to jump ship there is that Sophie really went out of her way to try and fake out like she had an idol, which I knew she didn't have it. They would have
Mhm.
shown us on the show if she got it. Like
Mhm.
Australian Survivor milk those things for all it's worth. They would have had them out there showing them how to find the idol, talking about the idol while having it in their hand. And I knew that it just wasn't happening unless they can suddenly switched it up, which would have been refreshing, but I didn't think that they were going to do that. But that kind of painted a bigger target on KJ as well, because if Sophie's got an idol, and you can't get rid of Sophie directly, then you have to get rid of KJ. So I think that that put even more pressure on KJ as well. And Sophie was kind of playing her own game there more so than thinking about her sister. And I don't blame Sophie for it. I mean,
Mhm.
you've got to try and stay in this game, any way you can. But in this episode here, we continue to see that relationship between Khan and Sam, it's evolving. They're getting closer and closer together. Obviously, Khan has been very quiet. He's been a favorite of mine this season. I love the devious villain that he is on the show, and I like those type of characters. We don't get them often enough anymore, I feel like. And she's saying that she wants to work with Khan. The problem for her at this point is that Khan's got an openly public idol that she sees as a big threat and a player of Khan's caliber. So she's trying to devise a plan between her and Chrissy to make Khan very paranoid and get him to play the idol, because I think that if he plays the idol, he becomes a more valuable person to Sam and her alliance, because I feel like Khan has got this great relationship with Mark. They're work husbands, and due to that, Sam and him have probably found a bit of a close relationship because he, in his mind, was that close to Mark in the first place. So I think that if they do get Khan to potentially flush this idol, there's potentially going to be a working relationship, and Khan might have a little bit more legs in this game than what we thought. It all depends on how he's going to react to Amy in this next episode being voted out.
Yeah, Khan's place in the game has been on a bit of a roller coaster so far, some ups and downs. So far, or right now, it's looking like it's going up, definitely with
Mm.
that scene with Sam. And of course, he's got an idol, but people might just kind of let it go because, I mean, they were very fixated on it at first, but I'm not sure what they're gonna do. It's been a little while since it like was revealed to them. Now that tribes have swapped, like who knows what's gonna happen? And yeah, with next week and Amy, he's upset. He very clearly from the preview. Who knows what he's gonna do? That could tank his game depending on what he decides to do.
Yeah, just want to say, Jenny K, welcome back to the live stream. I always love having you here taking part in the conversations. Says, hate that Survivor AU social media and how they promote it next week with saying three big names are going to go and they only show 5 people on the social media when they're saying that. I'm hoping, Jenny, that it's a misdirection and that it's not going to be 3 out of those 5 people, because if it is, they're massively spoiling us. And we as fans should riot against that. I think it's absolute BS if they did that to us. And then also here, she's saying that she's worried for Nina next week because the most recent teaser that they showed her getting injured on the show. And again, I'm obviously hoping that Nina doesn't go out this way. It would be an absolute travesty if we had to lose Nina this way, because I think she's by far one of the best and biggest characters that we've had this season.
Yeah, I think that's a misdirect.
It has to be.
Right? Like, have they ever done that where like they show the injury happening? Like I remember when Ross, was medically evacuated. I don't think that was shown in the preview.
They didn't show who it was. They showed that, like, I remember the preview for that season. They showed everybody participating, and then like a camera movement, and then the medics. But I don't think they actually showed who the person was that got injured in that specific episode. So that's a good point, because they didn't spoil Ross getting injured. So there's a good chance they won't spoil like Nina's injury, being that she gets evacuated from the game. And I'm really, really hoping that's not the case, because she's been such a great addition to the show. And there's some people on the online community and some of the Australian Survivor fan pages that have been complaining that this season is becoming too predictable, and that it's a bit boring for some people due to that. And I think if you take Nina out of the equation, like, who's going to stir the pot? Because I think that Nina, she is going to make a big move down the line. She wants to be remembered. She wants to play big moves, and she hasn't had that opportunity to do it yet. So if that gets taken away from her before she gets the opportunity to do it, I would be devastated for her. And not only will she lose out on doing that, we as fans will lose out on seeing some great gameplay from her, hopefully later on in the game as well.
Yeah, that would be so sad. I would be devastated if that's what happens. She's gonna, make some things happen eventually. Right now, it's just not the right time. We'll get into it with what happens in episode 9, but I think it's pretty telling of kind of what she's thinking about going into the later rounds.
Well, let's go on a little bit here to the early stages of the Blood Tribe here in episode 9. We've kind of discussed a little bit of the early stages on the Water Tribe and Sam and Khan and that relationship, and the Chrissy conversation happening of who's going to be the next target. We also here very early on get Josh suddenly becoming a bit of a bigger character. We get him talking about the fact that he's a captain on a he's a pilot. He's looking for his first officer. We now find out that it's not Mark who's Nina's closest ally in the game, like all of us thought from the beginning, and the edit made us believe, but she's actually closest to Josh in the game, even closer than she is to Geordie, and that she wants to be his first officer. But now Jordan has come in from the side. He's blood is thicker than water, and that has upset the whole apple cart in regards to what the social politics looks like and the hierarchy looks like within that tribe. And Nina definitely wants to get rid of him. She's looking for the right opportunity to do so. But Josh seems really well ingrained here. He's got his cousin with him. He's got Geordie, who's willing to move with him. Mark seems pretty happy with him. Plus, it looks like he's got good relationships with both Nina and Shay. So he's in a very good position here, and he tells us about the fact that he's been able to play a passive game for most of the beginning of this game because he didn't feel the need to make any moves, but he realizes that he now needs to switch it up a little bit with having his cousin there, because they're both big alpha guys that they may want to take a shot at, and he becomes a little bit more of an aggressive player here, at first wanting to target Mel because she's not physically that capable. What did you think of Josh and learning a little bit more of the dynamics here? I think we spoke about it a little bit earlier, where you said you're really worried that he could be one of those next boots because he suddenly started getting a bit more screen time. But I don't know why. I feel like he's got legs in him, because I just don't see a world where they're going to target him directly in that tribe, because Jordan may go. I think Jordan could go due to the association that he has with Josh, but I feel like everybody wants to work with Josh at this stage.
You're right. I think the thing that kind of scared me is that specifically like the intro package where it shows them back in their home, whatever they do for a job, like him as a pilot, like in the plane. That was a big sign last season that something was going to happen. Like I even think they, like with Rachel last season, they did it in like the same episode that she went home, in like episode like 6 or 7 or something, 8 maybe, episode 8. I remember I was like, this is like getting way too obvious. Like, and especially that was episode 9, and I was like, oh gosh, this is not a good sign. If it's not this episode, then coming up soon. But when you think about it logically, based on his position within the tribe, you're right. There is no really reason why anyone would target him. Although you're right, Jordan might. If either of them are going, I think it's Jordan, because they still want Josh there, but they want to at least weaken him somehow to take out his cousin. So, I mean, we already saw Amy try to do that, but she just didn't have enough leverage to make anything happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, Amy, for me here, this game or this episode, wow, if there's ever like overplaying and just going too aggressive at the wrong time, like this episode with Amy doing what she did, this is a great example of that. I felt like, yes, she wasn't in the power and she tried to get control and power back in the game. She's quite young. She, I don't believe, is a fan of the show. I think Khan is the reason she got onto the show, and he was the bigger fan out of the two of them. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the way it is. And I think she had a really good, I think she's got promise. Like, I think you bring Amy back 6 years from now, and she's going to be a threat in another season. But she overplayed her hand here, and the fact that she wasn't happy that she didn't have control. Jordan wasn't close to her. I always knew that she wasn't loyal to Jordan because she threw him under the bus in a hot second in the previous week when he gave her the clue or the hint to play the idol, and everybody asked, who told you? And she's like, it's Jordan. So she clearly didn't value that relationship enough to keep him safe there. And she now goes against the one person that really wanted to work with her, someone who shared information with her at the detriment of his own game previously, which normally should be seen as a positive thing in a game such as Survivor, where information is capital. She goes against that one person she's got and tries to dictate where people are going to vote, and she doesn't have the numbers. Like, I mean, the biggest bizarre thing for me this episode was seeing her go up to Shay, having a conversation with Shay, thinking that she can make this happen, when clearly you see Shay hanging around Josh all the time, hanging around that boys group all the time. She should have put 2 and 2 together that there's just no way Shay was going to move or do something differently here. And I feel like, this move could have been a move to make, but probably not this move, because the obvious target was always going to be Mel, because she was struggling physically and she was struggling like socially in the game. Plus, people were trying to weaken Mark's side of the alliance because she's closer to Mark. So it just made perfect sense that they wanted to get rid of Mel, and she stepped in front of the bullet that was aimed at Mel here in this specific episode. So a complete overplay, in my opinion, from Amy's perspective.
For sure. I don't quite get the logic behind it. I think it was just mainly came from like just unhappiness with her position in the tribe. She just wanted something to happen, and I think it was just she just wasn't patient enough to just kind of let things settle a little bit, let things speak for themselves. Look who's in the power positions. It's not her. She knows it's not her. Let other people come to that realization, make little, plant little seeds, have some conversations. It'll come to fruition. But she wanted something to happen then and there. And she even said at Tribal Council, like, it's always a good time to make a big move. And that is not true. It is not always the right time. You have to have good timing with your moves. Making the same move but one round earlier can be the difference between your game. It could be the worst move of all time if it's one round earlier, and then if it's one round later, it could be the best move ever. It just depends on when you do it.
And sort of segueing quite nicely from that, Nina had the opportunity. She doesn't find out from Amy directly that this is happening. So clearly Amy didn't talk to her. She spoke to many other people. She had a conversation with, obviously, Mark. She had a conversation with Mel. She had a conversation with Shay, but she didn't talk directly to Nina, and Nina finds out from the boys while they're in the water, relaxing, and she goes over to Amy to talk about this as well, and thinks about this as a very plausible option for her because she's trying to get rid of Jordan to get a bit closer to Josh, be that right-hand person to him, and in reality, she does have the moral high ground because if she got rid of Jordan and if he was annoyed or angry at her for it, she could say, listen, I'll let you guys take out my mother. I had to take out one of yours here, but at the end of it, I still want to work with you. I'm not holding it against you that you took out my mother, but you took out an option for an alliance member I had, so I had to do the same. I want to work with you. Let's work through this. I feel like she had the moral high ground, and she could have gotten away with that move, but clearly she decides not to upset the apple cart here because she does have a good relationship with Josh, and the way that the edit is sort of showing it to us at the moment, I think that the tight, probably four at this stage would be Josh, Geordie, Nina, and Jordan would probably be the tight four. And Mark and Mel are kind of in the outside. And Mark, I think for the first time since we've watched this season, I've been called a blind supporter of him because of how well he's played up until this point. And I still think he's playing pretty well. But I do think that he potentially falls outside of that core. So Nina not going against that does not necessarily put her in a worse position at this stage. It's kind of how I'm feeling about the game. Is that how you're reading it? Or do you think I'm completely off here?
No, I think that's pretty spot on. It is hard to believe that Mark could be on the chopping block, but I think Nina might. I don't know. It's hard to say. I was going to say maybe Nina would try to stick up for Mark, but I don't really know. It seems like she's pretty locked in on Josh here. She's very, very into that. Also, Shay is in that. Did you mention her? Can't remember.
Well, I feel like Shay is kind of on the outside of it. Like, I feel like she is hovering around, but I don't know if she's got like a home yet within that alliance. I feel like Nina's a little bit closer just from what the editor's showing us. I still find it hard to predict exactly where Shay sits in the equation because she completely misplayed her idol when she didn't need to, but then again, you can't blame her for it because if you're in the same position, you don't have all the information that the viewers have, and if you do think you're in danger, then play it. But that to me shows that she did feel uncomfortable in her position within the tribe, so she didn't feel like she could trust that votes weren't going to come her way necessarily, and maybe it's just the paranoia of having a public idol out there, which is the biggest reason I've always advocated for not telling other people that you've got an idol. And now that the Queen endorses that line of thinking, I feel like I'm justified in saying that because for the longest period of time, my co-host that I had last season didn't agree with that. And it's like, no, you got to use it. And I mean, I don't want to throw shade completely at him because there are certain times where it does make sense to use your idol as a leverage to build relationships if you don't have any social capital. But if you're not in danger, if you're not trying to win favor or social capital, like I feel like it's such a dangerous move to use the idol as a tool for building relationships because everybody knows that you're BSing when you're telling them this is our idol. We're going to play it for us if we need to. Like everybody knows you're BSing. That's your idol. You're not playing it for me.
Yeah, it's like when Sam was talking to Khan and saying, if we made it to merge, would you be willing to use it as a group idol? And he's like, absolutely. That was my intention from the beginning. Okay, yeah, sure. Khan of all people is trying to use it as a group idol. Sure. Yeah, it's always BS when they say that. There are some certain situations where maybe it's the right thing to use that, to kind of use it as a leverage tool. But I mean, 9 times out of 10, just keep it to yourself. If you think you're in danger, then you use it. I mean, it's kind of just simple as that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Just before we sort of start getting into our top fives here, the challenges for this specific one, we had the challenge where they had to pull the pole from each direction with someone standing on the podiums, which I thought was another great innovation from Australian Survivor, something that was visually so fun to watch. And, one of them got a massive knock to them when Jordan beat Croc because Croc nearly pulled it back on him, and I forgot who was on the other side. I think it might have been even Josh or somebody that was who was it? Like that got knocked off when Jordan pulled it back. But the hit that Jordan gave him because he had so much momentum when the other side lost it, it was pretty intense. I'm surprised that person didn't get injured.
Yeah, I don't know what that what like the end of that pole is made out of, but I feel like it looked like it would have hurt pretty bad.
Pretty
Um,
sturdy.
yeah, I mean, we saw that with Croc, I think it just slipped through his arms. I'm surprised that wasn't more of a problem with like, you're getting all sweaty. I mean, it's
Hmm.
probably pretty slippery, especially with like your hands, like you're trying to get a good grip on it. I was
That's what
surprised that
Mark.
it was.
That's what Mark was saying. Like he should have kept his T-shirt on when he went out there. And I thought that was gonna. I thought
Uh-huh.
when he said that, I thought, okay, well, firstly, I think it's two things. It's probably because he's getting burned up being out there on the
Mhm.
water, and then secondly, because it's hot, you're pulling that thing, you're gonna sweat. Not having a T-shirt on will probably make that pole or that beam that they were trying to pull very slippery because it kind of look a little bit, I don't know, wooden or something. But
Mhm.
I think he probably strategically thought if I had at least cloves, there's like an additional grip that I can get around it
Yeah.
when I'm pulling it. But he ended up beasting it out against Croc in any case,
Mhm.
just being an absolute machine. I
Yeah.
did a fan made casting video on this channel for Australian Survivor this week. And if Mark makes it pretty deep into this one, I might have to rethink that at a later stage because he's becoming a little bit of a beast. You need one big strong guy in the mix when you're going up against the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that I've seen it thrown around the idea of maybe having a. My dad is a big fan of this idea to have a season just full of like challenge beasts. I think that would be.
I'm for it. Tell
I'm
him about
for
the
it.
challenge. Tell him about the challenge CBS, which is going to be hitting us very soon
Yeah.
because it'll have CBS previous players on it, and it's not like there is social game involved in it, but the main premise of the show is the challenges. And even if you get thrown in to go out, then you get to defend yourself by going into
Mhm.
an elimination and beating other people at challenges. So it is about challenge beasts.
Yeah, maybe I'll
Think
have to check it
think
out.
Joey Amazing and Aussie and all these guys out there maybe on the challenge, competing against each other. Could be fun.
Mhm.
Could be interesting to watch. I don't know who's going to be casted yet, but that might be a show your dad will like.
Maybe, yeah. I think he's not necessarily like a big fan of like the challenge beasts themselves, but just the idea of like kind of the level playing field of everyone, maybe. Um,
Yeah,
but I agree, like if you're having a season that isn't like that, you do need one guy that's like, or you need maybe two guys, like one for each tribe. Um,
big physical beasts
mhm,
that are going to go out there and just be intimidating for other countries going up
mhm,
against them. And I think that Mark potentially could definitely fall into that. The second challenge here was obviously the immunity challenge where they had to bolt the tower. We talked about it previously. Jordan ends up tripping it up for them and losing it, and that I think added additional pressure on Jordan at this stage. Jordan is definitely I think in that tribe, if the rest of the alliance is smart, they'll target him. Like if you
mhm,
don't target Jordan soon, you give Josh too much power getting deeper into this game. He's already got Nina. He's already got like people that are close to him that he is building a really strong alliance with. I think you've got to weaken him. And if you can't go for him directly because you want to work with him, you go for Jordan. So I think Jordan for me in that tribe is definitely at risk of going home. The second person for me that is at risk of going home in that tribe is going to be Mel. She's not getting any content firstly on the show. So half of the time we don't know she's on there, which is an absolute shame because you at least want to give her like a confessional, like
mhm,
even if it's like a very short one. But I think she's in danger. She's clearly struggling with the physical aspects of it. She's close to Mark, so that's being seen as a social threat or gives Mark and his side a little bit of strength from an alliance perspective. And if I look at the other tribe, I think that at the bottom, it was kind of discussed previously. You're probably looking at people like KJ and Michelle as the two that are sort of in danger on that side there. But I do think Michelle will go before KJ. That's kind of who I think
mhm.
the four players are that at the moment is in the biggest danger, even though the editors told us there will be big moves made in the next week. So maybe all of those players are safe.
Yeah, I actually, I think KJ's actually okay. I think the two I would choose from that tribe is Michelle and Ben. I think I might be reading into this too much. I think that small comment made was foreshadowing. There was a small moment in the episode where they mentioned maybe trying to get out Ben. Um, I mean, one of his biggest connections was Sophie, and she's gone now. And it doesn't really seem like that connection with Sophie is really carrying on to KJ at all. So I don't think he's really close with her. And I'm just not really sure where he stands at the moment. I would say he is on the chopping block there. But I agree with the other tribe. Jordan definitely, I think, is got a good chance of going home next week. They've got to see Josh and Jordan as a duo and know that they've got to do something about it. And Mel as well for her lack of challenge prowess.
100%. Well, I want to get into the top 5 here for the week, Jake. We've got our top 5 that myself and Jake came up with, even though I had my own top 5 take, and I will do another one this week, maybe explaining my thoughts about it a little bit more, depending on how this goes. I actually jumped in and did that because of the fact that we got cut short last week, and I thought, let me at least get my thoughts out there because I couldn't properly explain what I was thinking about the top 5 that I had there. But this is where we're tracking currently. So blue is week 1, orange is week 2, and at the moment, Mark is the combined leader here. He got 9 points in the first week, 10 points in the second week. Nina is still hanging on in second place currently. She got, I believe, 8 points in the first week and about 4 points in the second week, being in second place. Sandra obviously is not going to feature this week in our top 5, so she'll be falling down that list as we continue on here. She's currently in third place, equal with Sam, I believe. They're both on the same amount of points here. Or, no, actually, I'm lying. She is ahead because she got 2 points and 7 points, where Sam got 7 points. Sam's at the moment in fourth place. Khan, Sophie, and then Jesse and KJ, sort of, those are the only people so far that have gotten points from us this week. But I'm really interested, Jake, in hearing a little bit more about your take on your top 5 for this week, because I do have a feeling that we're going to see some new entries potentially here for this week. I know for a fact I will be making some new entries for this week. I want to start off with your 5th place this week. Who would you give your 5th place for 1 point this week that you think deserves to be mentioned as someone that made some great progress in this game?
So we're starting from the bottom this time.
Let's start from the bottom this time, starting from the bottom to the top.
All right. I am not good with names for Australian Survivor for whatever reason. So
tell me what they look like.
Well, I'm just gonna have to pull up the cast real quick. Just give me 1 minute. Or if you'd like, you can go first.
I'll go first. While you get that ready, I think I am going to jump in and I am going to go first. Now, I did put a bit of shade on this person's name earlier on my updates this week, where I said, I don't think people are going to see this as a big move. This is not going to be something where he's going to get to the end and people are going to say, I'm going to give you the win based on this alone. But just due to the visibility of this person and still getting some edit and credit for the move that was pulled on Sandra, and Sandra being as big of a threat as she is on the show, I am going to go with Geordie in my 5th place for this week, and he's going to get 1 point from me this week. I do think that him not getting much of an edit in the last episode that we saw does show that he's got some legs to him. He's probably not going to be the Joey of the season that gets this big alpha edit that is too cocky for his bridges and then leaves early. It does look like he's got a good social game. He's similar to his brother, the jokester around camp, and it does look like there's a few people who do want to work with him. So I think Geordie still has some longevity in this game, and I will put him in my 5th place for this week.
All right. For my number 5, I'm going to do Sam.
Sam in 5th place. All right, tell us why you put Sam in 5th place and gave her 1 point for this week.
So I still think that she is more on the bottom than I think some of the people higher up on this list. I think she has more of a chance of going home maybe, but she's definitely making progress with reaching out to Khan, making a connection there. We saw her talking with Chrissy, having some negotiations there. She was able to get rid of Sophie, her biggest, enemy, I guess, in the game. So I think there's still a chance that, things could fall apart. But I think she made some progress this week, considering where she started on the tribe.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not angry at you putting Sam in fifth place. My fourth place this week is going to go to Khan, and I'm going to give him 2 points for this week. Khan has been a hot favorite of mine since the beginning of the season. He had a really good first week. He fell off in the second week, which is not unheard for winners to do. Like, I mean, think a la Haley last season. I think she had a very big first week and then very quiet second week and then came back. One of the things I like about Khan is that he still has an immunity idol. He's still in the game. People haven't come after him, even with the idol in his back pocket, which to me shows that he's got a position where he at least will survive 1 or 2 votes in the next week. And I think that he's building a bridge between himself and Sam. And because of that relationship that he still has with Mark as well, I do think Khan can still be a power player later in this game. He's somebody that's dangerous, and we keep being told how dangerous Khan is and that they need to get rid of him earlier rather than later, but we don't see people following through with that. So is the edit showing us that they're making a mistake? And I think it could be showing us that. So I'm more than happy to give Khan my fourth spot for this week and put him on 2 points. Who's your fourth spot for this week?
I'm going to go with Chrissy.
Chrissy. Okay, tell us why you're putting Chrissy on the fourth spot. And this is the first time. This is the first time Chrissy's been mentioned in our top 5. So well done, Chrissy, for joining in on the top 5.
Yeah, well, first of all, maybe I should have put her number 1 because she's actually already won the game at this point because she has the idol. No, but in all seriousness, she was able to find an idol, and I know that it's technically in with Croc, but we saw that she has some connections on the tribe. We saw she had sort of a connection with Khan on the original, was it Red Tribe? I'm so bad at remembering things, but on her original tribe, she was with Khan. I see that she's still pretty close to him. Khan calls her mom. They have a bit of relationship there. We saw, as I mentioned before, with Sam.
It's a good point.
With Sam, she's been negotiating some things with her. Sam seems to take what she's saying, seriously. I mean,
she's like a diplomat. She's like the two diplomats are meeting and they're like organizing what's going to happen. It's interesting.
Politics.
I feel guilty in a sense because I love Chrissy so much as a character, and I don't have her in my top 5 this week at all. So and you make a very valid case about her socially, I think, being in a very good place at the moment. So she very easily could have featured in my top 5, and I feel like I might have missed out a little bit on my assessment there, and I might have to go have a talk to myself afterwards, have a great talking to myself and say, why did you not have Chrissy in your team?
Have a stern talking down to yourself, saying, why didn't you put her on there? No, but another point is that we're seeing some pairs wanting to be split up. No one is talking about Chrissy and Croc at all, which I just came to that realization. And they have an idol. I mean, obviously no one knows about it, but that's pretty strong. Croc, it's probably, I know that I have Chrissy in the top 5 and not Croc, but I think maybe it's a good thing that it's in
I don't think Croc is. Yeah, I don't think Croc, edit wise, he's not as big of a player as Chrissy this season. He's probably a more level-headed player than Chrissy, but Chrissy's actually doing, give her credit. She's doing extremely well for someone that wasn't a fan of the show coming into it, and she's learning very quickly. I do want to move into my third place for the week, and this is the lowest that this person has featured on our top 5 so far, and it's going to be Mark. He's going to be my third place this week. This week is the first time that I've become a little bit worried for Mark in the game. Like prior to this, I was very hot on Marcus winning this season. I'm very confident on it. I still think Mark potentially is one of 3 players in my mind that could win this season, and he's still very much a hot favorite to do so. That's why he's in the top 3. Not necessarily all top 3 of mine is going to be the top 3 that I think is going to win the whole season. I'm just rating them on the performance of this week alone. And for me, Mark physically still stands up. He's still a bit of a leader. We did see his reasoning for why he made the move he did at the merge, but he did disappear in the edit for quite a while here. And Josh and Geordie came across as more of the 2 people that are actually driving the strategy and the direction of what that tribe is currently doing. So for me, Mark has gone down a little bit, and also the fact that they're trying to weaken him by taking out Mel in the game. I think that that could potentially be a big threat to him if he loses her early next week. Then that's another number on his side where I'm a little bit worried that he's on the outside, but I do think he's got a little bit of edit armor where the
Mhm.
edit is telling me he's going to go a bit deeper, unless he is the person that everybody wants us to believe is going to do really well and go very deep in the game, but then ultimately doesn't do so. That's a possibility as well.
The
But I
robbed
do still
goddess,
think. Sorry.
the robbed goddess of the
The Rob
season.
Gardis, he could be, but I still think he's got some longevity. So Mark for me this week, lowest I've put him on so far, is going to go in third place here with 3 points. Who's your third place for the week?
Yeah, I've got Mark at 3 as well. I honestly was thinking about putting him maybe at 5 or maybe not even on the list at all, but the edit is always going to be in my head, always going to be, at the forefront of my thoughts of how players' futures are going to look like. So I think, Mark didn't do anything bad. Like, what's the word I'm trying to use? Like,
He
he
didn't
didn't,
misplay. He didn't
yeah,
misplay anyway. Yeah.
it's kind of all out of his control,
Hmm.
or things are
He
just kind of
seems he
happening
seems to
outside.
be like one of the things I just want to add to that. He seems this week for me to be a bit passive. Like I
Hmm.
do think him being passive and a reluctant leader and not playing too aggressive in a game has really worked for him at this point in the game, and it's gotten him as far as it has. But I am worried that if he takes too much of a step backwards, that he could lose control of the direction of the game. If that makes sense.
Yeah, things seem to be happening around him, whereas things were happening with him on
Hmm.
his original tribe. Everything was kind of revolving around him, whereas now things are happening sort of off to the side. Where with we see Nina's like kind of on the Josh train now, going with him. Obviously, Josh has Jordan. Josh also has Shay apparently, and there's Jordy in there. But I don't think he's not dead in the water by any means. I think Mel definitely has a chance of probably being the boot before him. I mean, he's just so dominant in challenges. They're not going to want to give that up in case they do lose. Um, so he has dropped a bit. Obviously, it was my number one last week. So
Yeah, mine as well. We've
yeah,
been very much on the same page with Mark this whole season. It's quite
yeah,
interesting. I had him as 1 in week 1. You had him as 2. Then we both had him as 1, and now we've
yeah.
both got him as 3. So I feel like that's like the one thing. Our number 4 and 5 is completely different, but
Hmm.
we are bang smack correct on where we are seeing Mark in this
Yeah,
game at the moment.
yeah.
My second place for this week, and let's remember that I'm only basing this on the performance of week 2 and what I think potentially could happen moving forward as well, but mainly on the performance of week 2 is going to be Josh. I have to give him credit for his position in the game currently. I feel like he's in a position currently where he's got so much human shields ahead of him, like Jordan, Nina, that he is well sort of layered in between all of those people where they're not going to come at him directly. People seem to want to work with him. They'll probably go for his alliance members. And I hope that that comment ages well, because that in Survivor anything can happen. But I do think that Josh, taking a bit of direction here, he seems to me to be more of the true leader than what even Geordie was. I see a way forward for him to really run this alliance, the Alpha Alliance. And I think that in his mind, the moves that he's making is the correct moves. Like if you're the big alpha strong guy, target the people that are going to be physically weak, because when the time comes and they're at the merge, those are not going to be the people that are going to get targeted. They're always going to come, the weaker players, physically weaker, I should say, players will always come for the strong alpha players as soon as the merge hits. And it seems like he's surrounding himself with Nina, who's a female challenge beast, Geordie, who's really good in the challenges, and then Jordan, who's also been pretty impressive, and then Mark, to a certain degree, who's been an absolute beast as well. So I think his strategy currently of having human shields around him or meat shields around him, that seems to be working well, and that is the way forward for him. So I feel like he is playing the game as well as he can at this point. So a new entry to the top 5 here, with Josh being my second pick.
Yeah, I'm not trying to copy you. I know we just had Mark at the same spot, but I have Josh at number 2 as well. Honestly, was debating putting him at 1, but I felt like that was maybe a bit too drastic. But I mean, I just don't see what really issues he has this week. I mean, if we're just basing this on this week, I mean, what is there to really criticize? I mean, he I feel like he bounced back perfectly, especially from the whole shenanigans with Amy trying to take out Jordan, his cousin, his closest ally. I mean, he was able to just immediately flip it on her. I mean, he had Shay in his pocket. She immediately fessed up to him, and then they just easily flipped it back on Amy, able to bounce back really well. He was able to convince everyone, like on Mel, to take her out. Obviously, that was sidetracked because of Amy. But I feel like next week, if they do lose, then it's most likely going to be Mel because of the plans that were already put in place by Josh. So there's not a lot to criticize here from Josh, but I am a bit wary just because he just popped up out of nowhere. I mean, we see it in Australian Survivor a lot where that happens, and it's usually not a good thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes moving forward. Now, I know you're not going to be able to copy me on the first place because you've already got this person on your list. My
Okay.
number one placement for this week is Sam. She's my number one. She's first for the first time here. And I think that Sam's biggest bogey in this game was trying to get past Sophie. She was the one person who had a clause out for her. And I think Sophie had the moral high ground. And she called her out on tribal council saying, I never lied to anyone in this game. You can't say the same. And I think that she had Sam on the ropes where, Sam did do her dirty. She did want to work with Sam. I'm not saying Sam's a bad person because of it. Sometimes you just can't work with someone. But I feel like if there was one person who could have soured people on Sam in the game at this point, it was Sophie. And Sophie got the plan together. She moved the chess pieces that she needed to get rid of the biggest threat to her game here, and she removed Sophie from the game. And she is now very well ingrained, I feel like, with Khan. Khan's not coming for her. Her and Chrissy seems to be getting along. Her and Croc seems to be getting along. And I also think that she still has Michelle on the side as well. And I feel like she's going to try and save Michelle and target KJ. I do think that KJ is the person in that tribe that is in the most danger at this stage. I could be wrong, probably am, but it's kind of how I'm seeing it at the moment. And I feel like Sam is giving us so many winners quotes this last week that for me, my senses have been going off. Maybe Mark got the potential winner edit, or in our mind, he's going to be the winner because his partner in the game, his partner in crime, is the actual winner. And Mark might go deep, and their story together is not over yet. They will get to the merge. They will play a big game together. I still think one of those two are winning this season. I'm a little bit more 50-50 on who it will be now after this week. But Sam, in my opinion, she's my number one for this week. So I'll give her 5 points. What is your number one pick for this week?
Well, before I get to that, I do want to say I think you and I disagree a bit on how much power Sam has on that tribe. I think Sam does want to go after KJ, and I think we disagree that how much danger KJ is in. And I think that also correlates to how much power we both think that Sam has. I feel like I'm a bit lower, which is interesting because I think last week I was higher on Sam than you were.
And we've gone in opposite directions here, but that's what I love about it. We're not just 100% agreeing every week. Like, this is number one, this is number two. I like the different, outlook on the game.
For sure. I mean, you could be right. I could be right. Who knows? But
one of us will have bragging rights by the end of the week.
Yeah, maybe we're both wrong. Maybe Sam just gets voted out. Who knows? But my number one, shockingly, is not on your list at all. It's Nina.
Let me guess. Is it Nina?
I just said it is Nina.
Oh, did you? I didn't hear. Sorry, I was just going off on my run. So
okay.
As soon as I saw Nina's not on your list yet, I was like, he's going to put her at number one. I knew he was going to do that. So tell us why Nina's number one.
Well, the biggest reason is because I'm biased and I really like her.
Glad you're calling it out. Bias American.
Hey, I can't.
USA.
I did not plan this at all. It's just a very comfortable shirt. But It's very fitting for right now, so that's good. I think that she did come off a bit strong with her mom voting her out, but I think it's just I really admire how hard she's playing, but no one sees how hard she's playing. No one knows like she is here to win. She is here to take names. She's going to team up with Jordan, but guess what? She's going to get rid of her. She's going to get rid of him in a couple weeks. She's not just going to be his little puppy dog. So I and we see that Amy even I feel like everyone just tells her kind of everything. Amy was talking to her about things and she already knew about it. So I mean, I think she's just kind of in everyone's ear. Everyone's in her ear. She's teamed up with Josh, and she's gonna make some things happen, I think. And she's not in danger at all at the moment. And the biggest
Mm.
reason is because I just really like her, though. So I'll
Hey,
just say,
listen, I like Nina as well, so I'm not gonna. I
yeah.
think, like I said, if she goes home this week, I would be devastated by that. I think she's been
Mhm.
great fun. I think um, CBS got another thing wrong again and not casting her for David versus Goliath, and Australian
Yeah.
Survivor have capitalized from that. But
Yeah.
I am fearful for her. I do feel like she's lost a bit of power losing that partner in the game. I do hear you on Sandra potentially being this big target where people, if they can't take a shot at Sandra directly, they could have taken a shot at Nina instead, and that's
Mhm.
gone now. I want to see how this next week plays out, but I do give her credit for playing a really good under the radar game this week and not making a move for the sake of making a move. I think she's gone under the radar for about a week, but the edit is still showing her a lot, even though she's under the radar, which tells you a lot. And I think
Mhm.
that she will pounce back and probably be back in my top 5 next week. So I don't hate that choice. It's quite interesting that we both had very different first places because
Yeah.
it really mixes up the top 5, or should I say top 6 for this week now. I've just done the quick math on this. We've got the number 1 player combined, Josh, in first place with 8 points. In
Mhm.
second place, we've got Mark, equal with Sam on 6 points. Then we've got in fourth place Nina on 5 points due to you putting her at first. She just bounced ahead of a bunch of other people. And
Yeah.
then in fifth place, also a draw, Khan and Chrissy, both on 2. So our top 6 players for this week, Josh, Mark, Sam, Nina, Khan, and Chrissy. And I've got to say, Jake, I'm not angry at that. I do want to quickly bring up some of the live audience. I did see this earlier. I didn't want to bring it up while we were going through our own top 5, but Carlos's top 5 for the week is Sam in first place, Josh in second place, Khan, Nina, and Mark. So all of those do face do make an appearance in our top 6 as well. And then Dreaming is saying that their top 5 is Ben, which did not feature in
Mhm.
our top 6 this week, Chrissy, Sam, Nina, and Mark. And I like Ben. He's a great challenge beast, but I am worried for him from a strategic standpoint and how much control of the game he has. But from a just purely, I'm going to go out there and kill it in the challenges and give it my all. I think Ben is someone that is very likable and someone that a lot of people will be cheering on this season.
Yeah, I like Ben a lot. He is. I think he and Shay are not very strategic players, but
Hmm.
Ben definitely he gives all he has in every challenge. It's pretty remarkable, especially in the pole one where they had to pull the pole. I guess I saw it like I don't know how hot that pole was. I remember one of the twins made a comment that it was like really hot, but I saw
Yeah.
it like really like skidded against his arms, and I was like,
Guy
like I
gives it his
cringed.
everything, man. Like he
Yeah, yeah,
dies on the battlefield.
yeah. I know he
It's
acts
hard
like
not it's
yeah,
not it's hard not to like a guy that,
mhm,
leaves it out there in the arena
yeah.
like he does.
For
Well,
sure.
Jake, it's been great talking to you about this week's episodes. I always like this deep dive into what we saw from week 3 of Australian Survivor. If anybody got to this point of the podcast an hour and a half in, you're a real one, and we thank you for it. One of the things that we do want to do is a little bit of an interesting competition. If we get to 500 subscribers on this challenge, on this channel, we're currently, I believe, closing in on 200 subscribers. Last time I checked, I think we've just hit 180. If we get to 200 subscribers, which I think we will as soon as some of the challenge and Survivor US content comes out, I think we'll continue to grow. But even for those that are watching this, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. What I will do is a free buff giveaway competition when we get to 500 subscribers. One of the reasons I'm targeting 500 subscribers is because if we get there, that means that I can then put up community polls and get you guys involved in the content that we do on the channel. So I can ask you questions. Would you like to see this, or would you like to see that? And I think that will be really cool to build this channel and this community with you guys. So it's one of the reasons I'm targeting it. And the buff giveaway that I want to do is going to be for an Australian Survivor buff, which is a lot more rare than the buffs you get in the US. It's harder to get your hands on those. And in general, they're actually worth quite a bit of money as well. So even if you're not the biggest, like I'm sure if you're watching this, you're an Australian Survivor fan, but even if you're not an Australian Survivor fan, like even just from hey, I'll get that collector's item because I might want to sell it for $800 or something later on, I think that it will become just more and more money down the line. It will become worth more and more. So as soon as we hit 500, I'll announce what the rules for that competition is and how people can win that buff. But I'm really excited to do that. So if you're listening to this, please share this content, get your friends to listen to it if they're Survivor fans as well, and hopefully subscribe and support this channel. Jake, any final thoughts?
You're underestimating Nina. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, well, let's see you next week. I'm hoping she does survive, and I'm happy to eat my words and have egg in my face because I didn't have her on my top 5 this week. Overall, it was fun talking to you, Jake. We'll catch you guys next week when we will most likely have Way on the channel as our guest as well, and we'll see you guys then. Thanks for stopping by.